But I am here today to talk about human-centered transaction classification models, which I've already joked with a couple of you is like quite the title, really rolls off the tongue, really easy to say. But in a world where every company is a fintech, it's important to build a layer where humans can really successfully interact with the world of fintech that we're building. So I'm your host and guide for the day. My name is Melissa Pancoast. I'm the founder and CEO of The Beans. Before this, I co-founded an AI-focused venture capital fund. And before that, I led a research team at the University of Oxford focused on how people think and feel about their money. Why? Because how we think and feel about our money dictates how we behave. And so that's like the critical place to start. While I was there, I had the opportunity to lead a team to develop a program called Economic Strengthening. That program is the first program in the world proven to reduce financial stress. And so I'm not like, this isn't cute, this isn't like, oh, financial literacy, it'll work. No, this stuff actually works, and it's today been rolled out to 300 million people all over the world by the UN, the WHO, and the CDC. So when I'm talking about things today and I'm pointing to evidence-based, it's because that's my background. I'm a trained researcher, and I really care about high-quality evidence. Someone asked me yesterday, day before, can't keep it straight, what makes me happy? And as I was reviewing and preparing, I remembered, you know what? Data makes me happy. So that's why we're here today. So today I lead The Beans. It's a consumer-focused fintech that automates cash flow planning and optimization for the caring class. The caring class are our 40 million teachers, healthcare, and public servants. It's the largest and fastest growing segment of the US population. We'll talk a little bit more about them in a little while. When I started The Beans, I was motivated by a personal desire to get my own finances in order. So deep frustration led me to further frustration as I embarked on trying every tool and every app that possibly exists to find one that could help me, a college-educated, an Oxford-educated person, actually make progress with my finances. And I was shocked. So in that journey, I tried everything on the market, and I talked to everyone else I could find who was also trying everything on the market. And universally, we were dissatisfied. And the number one complaint across everything is that the data's wrong. It takes too much time to label your own data. It takes too much overhead to have to steward it, to keep track, to go in and label it and relabel it and curate it. People just don't have time for that, especially among the caring class where folks are getting out of work and they're already exhausted. So time and effort required to label transactions correctly is a major source of frustration with PFM tools. So when I set out to build the next generation, what we call personal financial automation, please don't ever put the M on us, we knew that we would have to build our own classification engine if we wanted this thing to be successful. So even more importantly, I didn't just want to label transactions correctly, I wanted to build the digital health of personal finance. And so how do you get great information that's clearly and correctly communicated to motivate and shift human behavior? It's not a small order, but let's talk about why. It's a huge opportunity, both financial and social, obviously. Money is the number one cause of stress in the United States. It is the longest running cause of stress in the United States. That's insane. Think of the investment that's gone into mental health and healthcare in the past 12 or 18 months. And we in this room are in charge of the thing that causes the most stress in the country. That stress costs the economy $4.7 billion a week in lost productivity. It's unbelievable the opportunity that's here to unlock ability in people's lives and to unlock resources in our economy. But we're not making any progress, and it's because our data is wrong. I'm sure there's, many other reasons why, but this is my professional opinion. The basic premise is that the models that we have are trained using merchant codes and rules-based systems. Merchant codes are for merchants. They're not for people. So we have a fundamentally failed primary premise when it comes to the entire classification architecture in consumer finance. And there are some things we could do to make that better, and that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, I want us to start at digital health, though, and to be inspired by what's possible. So like tackling stress in other areas, you can move people with great information communicated correctly at the right time. So we've got scales that help us to lose weight, sleep trackers that help us modify our sleep, and A1C trackers that help people manage their blood sugar. There's an incredible array of hugely valuable products in the digital health space that are working. And they work because they've got great data. It's because of a concept called mirroring. Human beings need clear mirroring in order to adapt and adjust. And if you cannot get clear mirroring, you cannot adapt effectively to the situation. Now, this is interesting because I don't want you to get me wrong and think that I'm saying that correct information will magically make everything better, because it's not just like information download and everyone, gets stress-free. That's not it, but it's definitely the foundational piece. This is critical for trust. Classification is critical for trust and for utility, and there have been huge gains in the past decade, but we generally think it's a solved problem, and I have to tell you it's really not. We're going to dig into some examples in just a second. There's a lot of really smart people that are working on this, but again, the gains that have been made are in vendor classification for the market and not vendor classification for humans. And that's a distinction that I want us to dig into together today. Labeling something as what it is doesn't mean it's useful. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a couple of examples. You can see a Slack transaction correctly labeled as electronics and software, but that's really only useful if I'm like running a P&L in my personal life. Like, it's just not actually a useful classification for that. Napa Valley Winery. Who here is from the Bay Area? Okay, cool. Everyone else, if you went to a Napa Valley Winery, would that just be an alcohol and bar, or is that something else? That's a travel, that's a trip, that's time with yourself, your family, your new boo, whoever it is. But calling it a bar on the corner is just not right. It's just not right. New York Times, a fee and charge. Technically correct, right? Technically correct, but not how I think about that transaction. And we're going to find that actually that's what matters. And then finally, Haight Street Eye Care. This one seems like it's bang on, right? But again, back to my P&L. What the hell do I care if I have an eye cost? It's completely useless to me in the day-to-day decision-making that drives my consumption as an individual. Then there's some that are also just not accurate. And so these are fresh transactions, hot off some of the hottest startups out there. So Safeway charged you $9.11. See if you can get a cheaper car insurance policy. So the three of you from California, or I don't know how far Safeway goes, that's a grocery store. It's a major grocery chain, and they're offering me better car insurance. That's so bogus. And this is like literally in the last month I got this. Bananas. Okay, Marlowe Restaurant, it's shipping. San Francisco Fish Company, business services. Like, I'm totally confused, but this is no good. This is current. So when we think it's a solved problem, it's also just not, even by the standards we hold ourselves today. There are some companies that have just given up. And so this is increasingly the use case that we see, or the way that we see this data displayed, is just vendor icon, which is awesome. That helps me know exactly what it is. Vendor name, nice and beautifully cleaned, and an amount that's associated with a date. This is excellent as far as clearly communicating with the user. But if that's all I'm doing, then again, why do they need us? Really? Right? Okay. I mean, our banks should do this for us, and I know there are some great people in this room making it possible for banks to do this for us. But if you can't do better than that, I don't know why we're talking. So let's do better. So these things are not just wrong, but that inaccuracy actually promotes bad behavior, which is what we'll dive into together today. So you've got both a product opportunity and a moral imperative to make it better. I'm going to start carrying the clicker he gave me, because then I won't have to walk back over here. Let's see if that works. Oh, God. Nope. I did the wrong thing. Classic. Please help. Wait, this is black screen here too. Hold on. No, we might be okay. We're okay. Okay, so thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to not push that anymore, though. All right, permit me to go deep on this for a second. At the Beans We Serve America's caring class. So again, these are our teachers, healthcare, public employees. And again, it's the largest and fastest growing segment of the US population. They're college educated. They're full-time employed. They're living paycheck to paycheck. I know that the middle class in America is getting squeezed, but it is possible. It's possible if you make these salaries, if you can actually comprehend the universe that you're living in, for you to make good decisions. It really, really is. These people report on average 15% more financial stress than their similarly educated and similarly compensated peers. To me, that's super interesting. So we have more acute pain with a group of people with the same inputs of education and income. To me, that's because this is a group of folks focused on other people, right? They are doing highly emotional jobs. They got to deal, like some of us go to work and we deal with maybe one person or no people if we're remote, like except for the occasional meeting, right? And these folks are dealing with 30 to 100 people who scream and cry and yell at them or bleed everywhere. Like they got a lot going on. So they have less bandwidth to bring to the problem. We've surveyed more than 2,000 members of the caring class about what they've tried, and they say that they've all tried lots of things, and they have landed back at paper. And they do that because the apps that they've tried do not help and make them feel worse. What? Like that's no good at all, right? So they've tried things and they bailed out. Now, the popular conception are these people are lazy, they don't care, they're stupid, they're poor, right? Backbone of your economy right here. That's not the case. They're working their tails off and they just need products that actually work for them. So the products that we have offered so far create more shame, more stress, and more work. No wonder it didn't work. All right, so what's really going on here? The people that I introduced you to have bachelor's and master's degrees. They have regular salaries. They do not fit the image that comes to mind if we think about financial stress, and yet each of them was in persistent financial stress when they met the beans. They were avoidant of their finances, and they were accruing debt. They and more than 70% of their working American peers have so much financial stress that it affects their lives, both social, emotionally, but physically as well. It impacts their physical and mental health. When you feel stress, worry, or anxiety, or embarrassment about your money, your physiology changes. It changes to power your fight or flight response. The hormones, adrenaline, and cortisol, they spike, enabling you to make a quick decision or a really quick getaway. And whether you're conscious of it or not, the muscles in your neck, in your back, in your jaw, in your stomach, they tense up. Your immune system is weakened. Your cognitive capacity is limited as your amygdala takes over for your frontal and prefrontal cortex. What's devilish about this is that in our financial system today, we build a lot of triggers. It's part of how we conceive that we'll bring people back into our products. And we've all gotten an alert from a bank that says that we've overdrafted or overspent or we're close to our limit. To someone with persistent financial stress, this is causing them to have an increased heart rate, shallower breathing over time, right? And then to add to it, when you get messages that say that over the last 3 months you spent 22 grand at one of your favorite places, like, I have no idea what that means, right? I can't imagine anything I spent 22 grand on, but that's just like, to me, it's when I started this business, which was longer ago than I'd like to admit to you all today, I was told the classification was just totally solved. And I see it every single day that it is not. And so I hope that you see it too. Obviously, there's some short-sighted product design happening here as we're really trying hard to drive people back into our apps. But when the message is being sent are inaccurate or they're triggering to us because we don't really have anything else good to say, what happens in the mind and the body of the person receiving the message is really important. So let's talk about that. This response is designed to help you survive. It's called allostasis. I should have put that word in big letters up here, sorry. But allostasis, which means literally maintaining stability through change. But over time, when you're triggered repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over again, you build up something called allostatic load. Allostatic load is a long-term cost of the superpowers that we tap into to survive on the day-to-day and to deal with these kinds of changes and adaptations. The problem is, allostatic load has been shown to predict cardiovascular disease, all-cause mortality, translation, all the reasons you die, and cognitive dysfunction and disability. All right? Of all the forms of stress that have ever been studied, work, health, family, caregiving, relationships, financial stress is the number one cause, or the one associated with the highest increases in allostatic load. One study found that financial stress doubled the all-cause mortality when you adjust for age and gender. That's insane, and it's true. It's easy to imagine that financial stress causes increases in anxiety and in depression and other mental health issues. It's harder to see the costs that are exacted on the physical system. Increases in heart disease, diabetes, chronic sleep problems, risk of substance abuse, addiction, increases in smoking, alcohol consumption, use of opiates, they are all associated with financial stress. It's easy to imagine, I got that already, apologies. So again, it's not necessary to fix classifications so our products are frictionless and fun to use. It's important for us to take responsibility for the accurate communication and messaging and the impact that the messages that we send to people have. Here's how we do it at the Beans. We use accurate data to help improve many, many areas of our life in the day-to-day. I already talked about a few of them from digital health, but think of it, you can get an EKG on your wrist. Like, it's totally incredible. Today we're going to focus on talking about data primarily. At the Beans, we built a new model from the ground up that enables us to automate cash flow planning for our users, giving clear and simple recommendations and information before decisions. We also offer trustworthy recommendations and automations. Data, however, powers all of our designs. So everything we do at the Beans is evidence-based and really focused on reducing triggers. In addition to data, did you know that the dollar sign makes the pain center in your brain light up? Which is interesting. Or if you think about money, you lose 15 IQ points. It's a standard deviation. That takes someone from being like your best friend to someone you can't really talk to. That's insane, right? Okay, these are really big impacts. There's many more. In addition, so the way that we focus on this is that we take these triggers out of the app. We avoid dollar signs, we avoid negative signs, and we build breaks in that promote cognitive function and reduce stress. All right, one more slide on behavioral stuff, and then I promise we're into data. I promise you. All right, so here's the principles of how we do evidence-based design at the Beans, because I like to share it with everyone I can. They are to have a plan, to build savings, and to spend according to your values. These are the three things with rock-solid evidence that are going to change your life. When I say have a plan, I absolutely do not mean have a financial plan with a financial advisor talking about retirement. Like, that's cute, but it's like 7 steps into the future, right? We need a cash flow plan that lets you know what's coming in, what's going out, and is it in any way organized in a way that's going to put you in the direction you want to go. So plan, number 1, 10 times more likely to succeed, significantly less financial stress. Huge. Build savings. Anybody want to tell me how much you should have in your emergency savings account?
3 months of
Cool, I got 3 months. What else? A year? Great. What else? I like depends. Give me, I don't know, 2 answers then. Oh, go.
your salary.
Your salary. Okay. Amazing. It's really, I pitch VCs on this all the time, so I've recently gotten $100,000 and I got something else. A year's salary is pretty good because I'm sure that in this room that's more than that. But the reality is the recommendations, which are most commonly 3 to 6 months, is what people conventionally hear. Those are recommendations that were made up in the 70s by a blessed white man in the 70s making recommendations for affluent people about rules of thumb for what to save. And they absolutely do not fit the lived experience of the audience I'm serving. You want to ask my people to save 3 months of expenses, it'll take them 5 years. They're never going to start. That's not true. They'll start, but they probably won't stick to it. Okay, so what does the research say about savings? If you've got $500 in cash assets, you'll start making better decisions. It's that easy. You have $2,500 stashed away, you are insulated. For a family of 4, $2,500, you are insulated from most economic shocks. We can get there, tell you you are doing awesome, which is something that everyone needs to hear way more often in consumer fintech. You are doing awesome. Please go focus on debt now. Thank you so much. We'll do long-time savings in the future, right? But let's bring these things into a right size. That research comes out of the University of Colorado, right here, focused on what it takes to actually reduce your stress. And that's, again, what matters for so many people today. The last one's my favorite, spend according to your values. If you spend your money in alignment with your personality and values, you get more utility per dollar. That's radical. I don't know if it feels radical to y'all or if I've just been doing this for too long, but utility theory says every dollar is equal. A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. Most of our mathematical models represent that, don't they? A dollar is a dollar is a dollar. It's not true to the experience of the consumer. When you spend money that makes you bigger in the world, you get more joy for it. And that's awesome, because that's a hack I can do without having to get my people paid anymore. Or to tell them to cut back on other things that they love, right? So these are the things. Have a plan, build savings, spend according to your values. Now let's talk about data. So we want to have trustworthy and useful, accurate information to communicate with our users. So doing this is enormously challenging, but here's what we have used at the Beans to build a useful and human-centered model. There are three, we'll call them principles for today. That'll cover us. One is mental accounting, one is rarity, and one is frames. I'm going to go through each of them, and we're going to dig into how we use these to design experiments to build human-centered models at the Beans. Okay, first, there's a warm-up. So I'm going to hand you all this, and then I'll keep talking to you. Actually, I'm going to ask for two people to help me. Do I have two volunteers, please? You can tell I was a fifth grade teacher. Fabulous. Yeah. Will you take this? You take these. Will you just give it? I think that might be enough. Give everybody a paper and a marker. Okay, we're going to take, theoretically, 5 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to follow the prompt on the paper, which is also up here on the board. Please draw a picture of everything that you individually spend money on in a given month. This is not a perfectionist exercise. Please do not consult your bank. Please do not consult your app. Right? Do it from memory. Also, please draw pictures. I didn't stutter. It doesn't say right. Please draw pictures. It's really important. We're trying to lift you out of the regular place you live in your brain. So I'll give you 5 minutes to do that, and I'll check in on time. In general. Do we need more markers? Perfect. It's going to turn out I might have needed those 5 minutes before, so I'm going to let you do this for a moment, and then I'll start talking, but you can keep drawing. Deal? Thanks. For those of you watching later, everyone has a piece of paper and a marker, and they're drawing pictures of what they spend money on every month. Thank you so much for helping. All right, I'm gonna go on, but you keep drawing, okay? It'll be okay, I promise. So I'm just gonna say what good looks like. What are we striving for in our models? We want that when someone looks at their transaction, they reflectively, without any hesitation, agree with what you've named it and know in their heart of hearts what it's for. That's what we're looking for. So I want to introduce you to mental accounting. Mental accounting is a form of cognitive bookkeeping that individuals practice to keep track of expenses and to control consumption. So every one of us has a ledger in our own mind, and it's our own ledger. We made it up. and it may or may not agree with the ledgers that are provided to us by society or by the fintech industry or any other industry. These are the words that we have made buckets out of, and we actually account in the background for everything we do. The next is a concept called rarity. Rarity is a type of bias where people underestimate the cost of exceptional expenses, but they accurately estimate the cost of ordinary ones. This is really interesting to me, but it means that when you go on vacation and you buy a bottle of wine at the Napa Valley winery, you will spend more money on it than if you're at home. Now that tracks because you're on vacation and it's special, but it also shows up in other ways. If you're going to buy a present for a friend and you just go buy that present, you will spend more money on it than if you are reminded about all the presents you'll buy this year and then you go to buy a present for that friend. When that present is part of a whole, it is less rare. It is ordinary. If it is on its own, then it gets more precedence. And also, it's a little more front of your mind, but you're going to go spend more money on it. And that's the place where we make accounting errors, which is interesting. There's a whole bunch into this, but I hope I inspire you to want to go read about these things or call me up and we'll talk about them. All right, the next one is frames. So frames are the neural lenses that determine how we see the world. Now, that sounds crazy, and for that reason, I've invited the man who came up with it to tell us a little bit about it. I hope that this will play. And if it doesn't, I'll just tell you more. Is this, I should have told you, huh? If not, it's okay, I could tell you about it. Okay, so frames are the frames that we think of the world through. And if something enters into our mind but doesn't hit a frame, it flies right through, which beautifully explains why many Americans are having trouble talking to one another today. So Professor George Lakoff from Berkeley has been writing and studying this for a long time, and he wrote a book called Don't Think of an Elephant. And if you've had any personal frustration about politics, I highly encourage you to read it. It's only 80 pages long. But it's incredible when you think about when those classifications were accurate but not right earlier. It means that when you look at them, it feels like you didn't even do it, which is crazy. Like, that's really powerful stuff. If we can't get it, don't worry about it. It's okay. You're the best. Thank you. All right, so I can share this as well with anybody who's interested. This is Professor George Lakoff from Berkeley, and his book is Don't Think of an Elephant. Okay, so how do we put this together? We need to build a classification system that fits the mental buckets without too many or too few, so we don't mess up with rarity, and that sticks to the neural language lenses in our mind, right? Okay, that sounds super easy, doesn't it? Okay, cool, yeah, let's do it together. And we're going to do it together in 3 easy steps. This is how we've done it at the Beans. So the first one is to ID your objective. Ours at the Beans is to reduce stress, so we've architected our taxonomy that way. But yours could be to help people get their reimbursements faster, She Banks is like celebrating women in particular. You could be trying to track carbon costs of transactions. The world is your oyster. Whatever you care about and your audience cares about, that's what you want to do this through. Once you have that, it's time to build your taxonomy. Okay, so now we'll come back to these. I hope you've had enough time to get some drawing done. This is my first time doing this with the top 2%, so we'll see how it lands. But I'm curious, how many pictures did you draw? Rough, you just yell it out. 7, 6, 10, 8, 13, 4. What else? Anything? 3. Amazing. Okay, cool. Thank you. For our audience in the Karen class, the typical number is 18, which is higher than y'all. But it's interesting to see that, right? How powerful is that? Just even in this use case to say, wow, personas, this group of people, it's a little bit different. So how many categories do most of our taxonomies have? Is my question for you. All of the 3 principles that we went through, it worked here. So this is roughly, what you just drew is roughly a picture of your personal mental accounting, roughly. If you have 10 categories, you'll experience perhaps less rarity. If you only have to classify 16 categories. It should be easier to find a true positive match when you're trying to label something. So let's dig into each side of that. So too many categories, you're more likely to be incorrect, and the end user is more likely to encounter rarity. Both of these things are going to promote spending. So we don't want to have too many. The MCC codes, Visa's MCC codes have at least 500. I chatted with the MX team. I think they've got 130 or so. Plaid's got about 130 or 110. We'll talk more about that in just a second. All right, too few and you run into challenges with mental accounting and frames, unfortunately. So Level Money tried this a few years ago. I couldn't find the right screenshot because they were acquired. Level Money had just 4 categories. This is some other part of their UI with 4 things. But it was like stuff, groceries, transportation, and bills or something, right? So they had 4, which is cool because they were always right, but useless. Totally useless. So again, a trade-off, accuracy and utility. Here's what we do at the beans. At the beans, we like to think it's just right, always a work in progress. Ours is built in 4 layers. At the top, we've got types. Types are indicated by color in our taxonomy, and types cover like where behaviorally in your life does this transaction fit. We are going to always be correct in the type level. Probably because they're almost always directionally indicated, so we won't F it up, right? So types for us are income, fixed, which is a calendared or recurring expense, we'll say scheduled. Income, scheduled. Flex, for us is a daily decision. I went to the store and I swiped my card, flex. And future. In our app today, you won't find future fully represented. You'll see it some as we're rolling out our savings feature. Future today covers savings. In the future, it'll cover savings and debt because debt pay down is part of your future promotion. So that's our types. We have to get those right, indicated by color. And I already said this, but we have to get them right because they are what power our recommendations to people. Below that are category groups. We have 18 category groups. Category groups are collections of vendors, or sometimes it's really just a small number of them because it's that present in our audience to lift it up to the category group level. They're almost always right. There is strong signal to category groups, and they're a little more permissive, right? We're not trying to be exactly correct here, but we're trying to feel correct. That is the purpose of the category group. Category group is number 2 right there. In this one, it's a membership. This is my Colorado Athletic Club. It's a membership, right? The next one down is the category. Now, if I say Colorado Athletic Club and I just said membership, you're like, wait, Melissa, that's not the word I would think, right? I would think gym or gym membership, right? Definitely the picture everyone in our group drew was a little barbell, so that's cool, we got that. This category section gives us our full 120 things, but they're represented in pictures. So they're a little bit more diminutive here. If we mess this up, but we land in the right category group and the right type, everything we tell you about it will be correct. So we will preserve that trust. And you might get the extra positive benefit of seeing that there's a barbell here because that's how you think of the thing. So that's what's happening there. And then finally, tags. You all know tags. Tags are plentiful. They could be anything. A couple that we've got in there, they're descriptive. They're not presently shown to the user. I put a couple up here. Joy is one of our tags, which is is this a thing that brings our user joy because we know those things? Is it recurring? What day, date, location, other attributes? Those are all in there. Those are the super flexy attributes that let us do other cool stuff. Connect things together, figure out that actually it's not in the right category group, it belongs over here. For example, this, if it wasn't recurring, indicated by that teeny little recurring check mark, it wouldn't be in memberships. It would be a regular one-off fitness class. Going to yoga occasionally is different in my brain than a fitness membership, and that's important to represent to the user. This structure lets us be right, especially in the most important ways, and we have a richness of information for cool and more nuanced things as we drill down. But especially with so many transactions to manage, we want to do what we can to bring this into a space where we can be accurate and then push towards nuance. Plaid recently released a major update in February of this year that actually looks kind of close to ours as far as these category groups. But which of these categories, so they've got 120 or so on the back end, and now they've got, I thought they said it was 16, it might be 18 just looking at it, sort of category groups on the front. Which of these would violate a mental accounting rule? Also, like, just yell it out for fun. Yeah. What? Loan payments. Sure, yeah. What else? General service, yeah, what does that mean, right? Yeah, the thing with mental accounting is it's got to be the word you use in your own brain. And general services is kind of strange. There's one more on here that makes me insane. Can anybody get it? Oh yeah, that truly, but no, like really insane. Oh no, it's transportation. This is everywhere, and not a single human being thinks of it as this. So like this, if there were a poster child for what I'm trying to get changed and how we build taxonomies for humans, it's transportation. Because never in your life did you think, unless, again, you were organizing for a group of people and you were like, what's our mode of transportation, I guess. Like it's not a word that you actually use for yourself to describe those activities. So this is cool that this exists, but it still doesn't map all the way out. You know, and we already illustrated that there would be different sets of taxonomies represented in this room. Okay, checking my time. I think I'm supposed to wrap, but I'm going. We're close. All right, step 2, build the human-centered model. So this, well, use your taxonomy and then get to work training your model. At the Beans, our models are named after beans. So the one that classifies transaction is named Cacao. We use all kinds of things to make this possible. We use our own NER model, fuzzy matching, vendorization keywords, category mapping. We pull in other APIs like Square, Foursquare, and SERP, and then others. And then we compare the results to the output of our ML model to see what's the strongest. This picture comes from Plaid again, so you can read up. They've detailed their whole ML process for you, for how they train their models. And if you like this kind of thing, check it out. There's a bunch of smart people working on cleaning and normalizing transactions. That's for a whole nother day. But as far as going from transaction to taxonomy, the bridge between, in the most robust way, is through these models. All right, you get extra credit if you can make that transaction contextual. Now, if I take a Lyft at 7:45 in the morning to the same place that I do Monday through Friday, what is it for? It's for work, yay. Okay, if I take a Lyft home from a bar at, 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, what is it for? Yeah, for fun. That's great. Fun, which is not a word that's in most of our taxonomies, right? That's what matters here. So make it contextual. Now, that requires a whole lot more. So I beg you, know when a Lyft is for work or when it's from the club. Know when someone is trying to visit their family or when they're at their best friend's wedding and they're a bridesmaid and it's going to cost them $5,000. Like there's definitely product to build around that. Know when they're actually overspending, right, versus just having a transfer out, as someone said before. And reward them for being awesome and not getting that $40 bottle of wine because it took hard work to not make that purchase when they were at the grocery store. So if you don't think that Facebook, Google, and Microsoft know these kinds of things, like how many minutes has it been in this conference since you got a notification from LinkedIn suggesting that you connect with someone you sat next to in a session? There's a whole world of possibility for us here. We just have to go get the data and bring it together. So at the Beans, these are the steps that we're making in that direction. And this is a quick figure from our patent on contextual classification. So originally conceived as a shortcut to getting information immediately when a transaction happens. So I'm at the store and I swipe and I have a Square receipt and it hits my email 3 days before that thing settles through pending. I was like, I need data now. So we started down this path. What we learned is that we could get product level description detail out of that. And oh, holy hell, when I can add product level detail to a Target transaction, what happens, right? The big box problem goes away. That's amazing, right? So let's add information to the transaction line. Let's know where you're going on vacation and what it's for. Not to be creepy, but to be useful, right? This stuff, this patent went through. The only other patents that are like it are held by Googles of the world. And they're doing transportation relevance and contextualization. Like the tech is there, the people are there, the brains are there, let's make these things happen. So we use context as one of the cool things. And an aggregator is also very unlikely to be able to do it because they do not own the relationship with the end customer. The only one that I can think of is Intuit that actually has direct access to their own customers in a wraparound kind of capacity. And they're a behemoth. I'm not certain that they're thinking about these things. If you are, call me. Okay. Next one, last one. Finally, step 3, make your model learn. It is every technologist's dream to have a bunch of humans train their classification model. And guess what? People are not going to do that. I sat down with Albert Coe, who was at the time the Chief Transformation Officer at Intuit. And I talked to him about this, and he said that no one ever touches a transaction line to edit a transaction. You know, I'm not surprised by that. Even if they do, I'm pretty sure that the people who do edit transactions in Mint are not representative of the broader audience you're serving, which means you have a bias in your model, and it's probably significant, right? So you have to find ways to get people to actually tell you if something's wrong. So for us at the Beans, if we're ever wrong, swipe left. It gets thrown into a human-in-the-loop classification system. Gets better for everyone across the platform. Super, super simple. I need you to tell me if we messed up. I need to make it so easy that you actually do it. Okay, easy peasy, right? Yeah, I thought so. Here's a couple of things that we ran into along the way just to share them with you. What do you actually name those categories and category groups? We heard fun earlier. Fun is one of the challenging ones, so glad you brought it up. Recurring peer-to-peer payments. Our audience pays their rent over Venmo. You would like to think that's easy. It's very hard. Happy to talk about it. Transfer logic, we again kind of believe this is solved, but it's not, and it's really important. People transfer between themselves, between other people, between their own banks. You got to keep it all straight and not send them messages that tell them rather that they just spent a bunch of money moving money to their savings, which is the behavior you would like them to be doing. And then finally, disambiguating big box and high SKU stores. The icon here is Apple because Apple is everything vendor-wise, right? We've got so many Apple transactions that we get to get through and understand the difference of because they actually have different meaning in an end user's life. And there's a bunch of things like that. Okay, thank you so much. I think we just did it. They're going to kick us out of here. But I would love to be in touch. We're hiring a senior engineer, a back-end engineer, a PM, and a head of partnerships if you know great people. This is my QR code and the leaders on our team. And I know that they would like us to vacate, but until they kick us out, does anybody have a question? Behaviorally, that should be, what are the questions? But yes?
So for classification, we showed swiping.
Yeah.
We thought of actually letting users tag and get multiple box or allow them to have their own taxonomy. I look at front with my mother.
Yeah.
Necessarily it's a fun thing, but it might be
Totally. We're rolling that out right now, and it's a tension. I don't expect people to correct things, but I do think that they will want to adorn them, and that's what you're talking about. They want to add additional enrichment, and I think that's so cool. And I would love for anything my user has motivation to do, I want to capture, please, right? So absolutely. And that's where you get into some stuff, who knows? I know someone who has a grocery subscription that they're actually sending to their family, right? So, okay, that is interesting. Lots of stuff with pet care expenses, but yeah, adornment for sure, tags.
I guess to follow up that reporting, are you going to give them access so that they can pull down and understand that adornment with the taxonomy you give them and they can kind of...
Yeah, our users aren't exactly power users in the classical sort of spreadsheet or like YNAB sense of the word, but we'll send them reports, and if they wanted to get their data out, they certainly could. Yeah, for sure. Okay, I see people now staring me down from the back, so I think it's time. I'd love to talk with anyone who thinks that this is exciting, and I appreciate you being here today. So thank you so much. Take care.